First, let's review what we did last week. We have a database with artists where one artist has many releases and one artist has many contacts. This is what it looks like at the data layer in Airtable. We have artists, releases, contacts. What we're going to do now is we're going to create another table called budget line items. Budget line items are going to be directly related to releases, where one release has many budget line items. These budget line items are going to have attributes that are going to allow us to look at how much we're spending by release based on category. Releases are now related to artists, as you remember. So we're going to be able to look at the total amount that we've spent at the artist level at any time in real time. So let's go. First thing we need to do, you already know, is take our spreadsheet of information. This is where you're probably already tracking your budget line items, and we need to put it into Airtable. You'll see we have the release it's associated to, the type of expense, description or title of the expense, the amount, the date, and the status. So let's download this as CSV, come into Airtable, add a table from the CSV, and then we're going to start changing around the fields. First of all, I don't want this coming in as single line text. So let's just make everything come in as single select. Everything should come in as single line text to start. Maybe this one can be a date. Status can be single line text. Okay, I like this better. All right, let's rename the table. We're going to call this budget line items. Okay. Now let's duplicate this primary field because I want this to be where the linked record goes. Let's call this name, make it a single select, call this one releases. Okay, and then let's change this to a linked record to the releases table, and it should recognize the release because they have the same name. Boom, there you go. So everything's now a linked record to the release table. Type, I want to make type its own linked record field. We could do it as a single line text, but I'm looking forward into the future where we're going to, maybe not in this video, utilize a very, very powerful functionality that Airtable offers called pivot tables. At the moment, pivot tables are only allowed or offered in the dashboard screen. But if you have this layer of linked record that I'm about to create for you, we're going to be able to do some fancier things with the pivot table. So that's the way I'm going to do it. We're going to link to another field. This is going to be create a new table. This table is going to be called, let's call it budget categories, maybe? Budget categories. And this one will just be the singular budget category. And that's one. Okay. Cool. Budget categories. Now, if you look in the budget categories, we've got all the categories and they're linked to budget line items. And we're going to actually create a single line text field here called bucket, maybe? Call it whatever you want. But this is going to be able to say like, okay, we've got marketing, we've got digital, and we've got A&R. You can go on. And because we're making this a linked record table, we can also scale it. Let's say you're adding budget categories, budget line items, different types of things. You could add them at any time and your system will not break. That's another benefit. So this is marketing. What else is marketing? Sorry, influencer marketing. Let's call it digital. Out of home, we'll call marketing. Digital advertising, indie press. I missed one. We'll call it publicity. So maybe styling and press is both publicity, social content, digital. Producer fee would be A&R, studio fee. Mastering fee is A&R. In-store marketing would just be marketing. Street team would be marketing. Cool. Now, each budget category has attributes that we're going to be able to leverage again in the future. Okay, back to budget line items. We have the title. We have the amount. Let's make this a currency field. Cool. Date did not come in properly, so let's make this a date field instead of the single line text. Love that. And then the status. So this is the status of the budget line item, whether it's been only submitted or approved or fully paid or whatever. Okay, so now let's get into the interface, and let's create a place where these line items are going to live when they're inputted, but also a place where you can add new ones. So we're going to click edit on the interface. Over here is where you can add new pages. I'm going to create an entirely new interface, and I'm going to call it finance. Okay. Maybe there's a cool icon in here we can use. Boom, some money. Go next. And the finance is going to be a record review. So these are your different layout types, and these are the ones that they offer you out of the box. You could build your own if you want, but it's really important sometimes to use the ones they offer out of the box because they're built with some rich features. So here we go. Next, we're going to link it to budget line items. You know what we're going to do? We're going to link it to releases, and it's going to be a budget line item screen. But we're going to filter by nothing. Filter by nothing. But we're going to sort by date. And we could group by reporting week if we wanted to. Let's see what that looks like. We'll call this budget tracker. All right, so now you have your releases listed in this column, and then in this section is where we're going to have our budget detail. Let's put one more thing in this view here. Maybe we'll call it release date. Okay, so now you've got the release title, the type, and the date. Perfect. All right, now let's come over here. I'm going to get rid of all this stuff. Maybe I'll keep the date, and then maybe there's a status or something. Yeah, so date and status. So whatever's going on with this release can kind of stay up at the top level here. This group can have a title. Yeah, let's move on from that. Okay, now we are going to add a group, and this group is going to be called budget line items. And that's going to be a link to the budget line items table. And we're going to make this a list view. And then we're going to come into the list view and change the fields around. So we don't need that first name because that first name actually has not been set properly yet. Don't worry about it. We're going for speed here. But let's go title, status, date, amount. Cool. And let's move that around a little bit. So let's put the date in front. The budget category. Let's see, date, title, amount, budget category. Cool, cool. It'll look better when I get out of the editor. Trust, trust, trust. Okay. Cool. Now I want to create a level of hierarchy here. Let's see how this looks. What if I wanted this? Yeah, disregard. Let's group it by budget category. Boom. So we got influencer marketing, mastering, styling, down and on and on. Okay, we need a couple more things here. We need a way to add new items. So we'll add records through a form. So I just click that button. Now I want to change the form. Let's call it add line item. Edit form. Don't need a name, but we do need a title. We need the category. The release we don't need to specify because we're coming from the release parent page, so it will know the release that we're putting in. And then we want to put an amount. We want to put a date and the status, and we can make the status default to submitted. And we can make the date default to today. And let's say, let's push this to the top. Boom. This is going to be required, 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 required. Right? They're all required. Sure. Required. Let's tidy this up a touch. There we go. Boom. Okay. Add budget line item. Awesome. Cool. So I'm going to publish this. We're going to take it for a little spin, and then we're going to come back to editing. So you look in all these releases, you have some information already, right? This is the demo information that we brought in. So you're seeing how much you've spent in indie press, mastering fees, street team, studio fees, blah, 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 blah. And if you wanted to add anything, you can come in here and you can say, I'm adding out-of-home marketing, and I'm going to say demo, billboard in Times Square or something. And then we're going to say we spent, I don't know, $14,500 on that. And then we submit. And there you see demo billboard in Times Square is there. Great. This is not much better than doing it on a spreadsheet. So thank you for bearing with me. We're about to get to the good stuff. All right. So you might argue that we don't need to group these things by such granular detail, right? How many different budget categories are there? A dozen or so? We're not necessarily concerned about the actual budget line item because budget category, because one release is maybe only has one out-of-home marketing spend, one in-store marketing spend, one producer fee for sure. But we do care about the parent or the bucket that budget line item is in. So let's come to the budget line items table, come to the budget category linked record field, add a lookup to the bucket. So now bucket exists in the budget line items table. What you just witnessed was the power of relational databases. This is something that spreadsheets can't do. So now we come back in here. Let's group this instead of by, sorry, I'm in here. Let's group this instead of by budget category. Let's group it by bucket now. And I think that looks a little bit cleaner. So now we've got all of our A&R expenses here, all of our marketing expenses here, all of our publicity expenses here, etc., etc., etc. One more cool thing I'm going to do before we start with the kind of more financial math and accounting type features is I'm going to show you a different visualization, because when you use this list view, you can have many visualizations offered to the user. So I have list, but list doesn't look all that financial. List is kind of like very friendly, but if you wanted to see it more financial oriented, we would go to grid. So I'm going to show you what grid looks like. We'll come kind of into the preview mode here. Oh, I must publish first. Now I don't need time, change to grid, and you can see these line items more in a environment that you're accustomed to. You can also have a much easier time copying and pasting out of this, and et cetera, et cetera. Now, other things you can do to make this look a little bit nicer, but for now, we will move on. Let's keep it at the list view. Okay, so now we need to roll up this information back to the release so we could observe how much money is being spent on each release, and then compare it to how much money has been budgeted to be spent on each release. So back to the data layer. In the releases table now, remember, releases, one release has many budget line items. We're going to create a roll-up field, and we'll call this marketing actual. How about that? And we will roll up from the budget line items table the amount field governed by this condition, where budget bucket has any of marketing. And then the operator is going to be sum. We're going to sum all those values. Boom. So now we know how much we've spent on marketing for each one of these releases. Let's do the same thing for A&R. And we'll change this to A&R. And then we'll do the same thing for digital. And the same thing for publicity. And then now I want another 4 fields that tells us how much we budgeted for each one of these. So marketing actual, we're going to say marketing budget, and that will be a currency field. Oh, where did I miss it? Currency. And then we're going to say digital budget. A&R budget. Publicity budget. Boom. Okay. Now I also want a field that shows us everything. So this is going to be total actual, and there's going to be no condition here. So just give me the sum of all budget line items related to this release. And then the total budget is going to be a formula, and that's going to be these 4 budget things: marketing plus digital plus A&R plus publicity. And that's going to be that. We'll format this as a currency, and it'll look nicey nice. Perfect. Back to the interface layer. Let's get back into editing. Now remember, this is an entire detail screen of a release. This is a child table within that release. So we can put all that information up here. In fact, let's add a new group at the top, and we'll call this budget summary. And let's just put that information in here. So we've got marketing, actual, marketing, budget, A&R, actual, A&R, budget, digital actual, digital budget. Publicity actual, publicity budget, and then total actual, total budget. And I just saw something I'd never used before. Brand new feature. And let's give this a shot. What if we put a chart in here and we say that the chart is going to be budget line items, marketing, A&R, publicity, and then the x-axis and the y-axis is not the count, but it's the summary of the amount summed up. Oh man, that's so sick. Marketing, A&R, publicity. Hells yeah. Cool. Very, very cool. Okay, now let's make these editable, right? So these are the ones where you're setting the budgets. You know, if I had more time, I would put the ability to set the budgets in like another interface for a manager or director type level person, so they can set the budgets and then the people on the front end lines can observe the budgets. But nonetheless, here we go. So you see, like, once I put, let's publish this. So once I put, you know, this is $10,000 budget for this release, and this is a $50,000 budget for this release. Digital gets $25,000, and publicity gets $12,000, right? You see the total budget is changing, actual. So someone can come in here very confidently, right? You're a marketing person, you're a digital person, and you can say, well, all right, well, I declaratively have the money to spend, right? There's a $100,000 budget for this release. We have only spent $9,800. This is how we've spent it. These are the specific things we've spent it on. Come on, people. How powerful is this? This is crazy. One last thing I'm going to do just because I want to flex on you guys. The power of relational databases is that let's take all that information at the release level and let's roll it up to the artist level, because all these artists have more than one release. Let's count them. So number of releases. We can use a count field. Releases, boom. So several of these artists have many releases, like Jimmy Kahn, Helen Diamond, whatever. So you want to know, how much are we spending on these categories for all these releases? Do the same thing. You're at the artist layer, above releases, above budget line items. You've properly structured your database. So now you just go like this. Roll up again. Budget, actual, not budget. Marketing, actual. I'm just going to do this with one or two because I want to keep this short, but you get the idea. So we're going to roll up. So use that roll up field again. From now the releases table, the marketing actual roll up field. So it's a roll up of a roll up. Sum the values and then do the same thing with A&R. And you could go on and on and on. Marketing, actual, A&R actual, digital, publicity, totals. You could have the single line or the currency fields to set budgets against it, so people on an artist level could see how much they're spending against. The same thing. And then when you come in here to releases, you could add we'll do it right here for the sake of trying to be somewhat brief about this. Add a list view and call this artists. And this just shows you all your artists. And then in the detail screen, you want to just show those things. So we want to just show how much we spent on A&R, how much we spent on marketing. Oh man, let's just go do it. Publicity, duplicate this. Just looks so good. Oh, gotta change this to publicity. Change this, duplicate this, change this to digital. All right, I'm trying to get this done. I have 2 minutes to get this done. Digital, boom. Back to the interface layer. Open those fields up. Tighten this up nice and tight. Sort it by alphabetical. Publish. And now we have an artist page where someone can come in and be like, how much have we spent on all these bucket categories without having to call finance, without having to call business affairs, without having to call digital leads, without having to call anybody? You know at your fingertips what's been spent and how much you have left. I'm out.